Today I'm delighted to speak to Tarun Khanna from the Harvard Business School. What do you think is important for a person going to an emerging country? How do we know we have someone who will do well there?
First of all, we have to have a great deal of humility in my experience, because I think that it's actually quite difficult to predict success based on your past experience. And there's a whole collection of research that talks about what are assumed to be fairly immutable predictors of success. And I think certainly the business school profession, the consulting profession has gone down that road because I think I'm speculating a little bit easier to sell that I know what worked in the past and let me tell you what's going to work in the new setting. My experience is that's not the case. And I think in particular as more and more countries have entered the world economic system, the amount of variation, if you will, that we have to deal with is so much more extreme than was the case historically, say a decade or 2 decades ago, that the number of unfamiliar circumstances with which we have to confront ourselves, either as financiers, entrepreneurs, or as academics, is much greater than before. And that's why I start with humility. We need a good, healthy dose of humility to not assume that the success factors will be either relevant or certainly not as salient as they have been in our past circumstances.
Tarun, beyond humility, what are some of the other important characteristics?
I'd look for primarily an entrepreneurial attitude, even in the most, dare I say, hidebound, hierarchical companies. I would still look for somebody who's more entrepreneurial, because I think, Karl, the primary thing that's needed is the willingness to experiment with the contextual setting and the marriage between, if you will, the place where you're going and the business model that you're bringing into it. You need to sort of unpack your business model to try to understand what parts of it will transfer over. And very often it needs also, in addition to the entrepreneurial and slightly more risk-taking attitude, it needs an ability to abstract a little bit. I don't want to say a higher order of intelligence because that sounds a little bit rude, but it needs the ability to move from the specific to the general.